I know why you clicked on this video. You want to win. You want to have bragging rights for the next year over your league mates. Maybe you've never actually won the championship and you're like, you know what? I just need to get over that hump. Well, you've clicked on the right video, because today I'm giving you 10 of the biggest mistakes you need to avoid in fantasy football to become a better fantasy player. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Hopefully everyone is doing well out there today. We're talking about some of the biggest mistakes you need to avoid when playing fantasy football. Now, there are a lot of tips and tricks out there, but if you can avoid just these 10 mistakes right here, you are going to become exponentially better at the game of fantasy football. Now, maybe you'll find yourself needing even more help. Don't worry, you can always head over to tfhdraftguide.com and get yourself a 2024 fantasy football draft guide right now. All the information you need to dominate in 2024. You can also get a free draft guide by signing up for Underdog with a new account using the referral code Headliners. Once you do that, make your initial minimum $10 deposit, you're going to get a few things. One of them being a free 2024 fantasy football draft guide. Underdog also going to put a special pick into your account, and then they're also going to give you a first-time deposit bonus of up to $250 in bonus cash. But let me let you in on a little secret. We drop straight fire here all year long. Just by subscribing to the channel, you're going to become better at fantasy football. There is no other channel out there that does it the way that we do it. And if you look through our comment section, not only probably in this video, but past videos, you're going to see a lot of people saying the same thing. So if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time to do so. And then do me a favor, please hit the like button if you haven't already. If this video can get over 1,500 likes, I'm going to give away a free draft guide to somebody that leaves a comment down below in the comment section. So be sure, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave that comment down below. And let's talk about 10 of the biggest mistakes you need to avoid in fantasy football. Number one up on the list is believing all the rookie hype out there. Is it just me, or does it feel like every single year there are multiple articles and shows all over the place that basically list every rookie as being some form of a breakout in their rookie season? That is not likely, and that never happens. Just this offseason alone, I've seen articles like that on Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers, Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson, Keon Coleman, Ricky Pearsall, Blake Corum, and the list goes on and on. Jalen Wright is another one as well. Now, sure, I like a lot of those guys, but to sit here and say that all of them are going to go off, that's a little much. When it comes to redraft fantasy football, this is how I handle rookies. I'll draft a rookie. I'll draft Marvin Harrison Jr. this year. But does that mean I'm going to have a bunch of other rookies lining up on my bench? No, I'm not. Just because we all think something's going to happen to a player in the NFL, they've never played in the NFL, so we don't really know anything for sure. So in my opinion, if I'm taking a risk on an unproven rookie, regardless of what people think of him, I'm not going to be taking other risks on other unproven rookies. Instead, what I will do is I'll stack up a couple solidified veterans on my bench. As an example, this year, guys like maybe Chris Godwin, a proven veteran performer, a decent wide receiver 2 option that just in case my rookie stud wide receiver doesn't pan out, I have an option on my bench. Because what happens if you draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and Ladd McConkey? McConkey is the guy that can go in for Harrison at any time, right? What if they both struggle in their first year? Now all of a sudden, you're caught with your pants around your ankles and limiting your opportunities for winning weekly matchups. Take a risk now and again, but don't take so many risks that it hurts your fantasy team before the season even starts. Number 2, and this is a big one right here, don't follow hot takes all over social media. It is not worth it. There are so many people out there right now trying to make it in the fantasy industry that they're throwing hot takes out there. Do they really have any reason to throw the hot takes out there? No. The reason they're doing it is because they're just hoping and praying that one of them happens. Now, sure, they may have had an offseason full of hot takes, but if one of them comes true, that is all you're going to hear about all over their page, all over their channel. That's what they're going to be talking up. Forget the fact that you went like 1 for 12. You're going to really highlight that one thing. They're trying to grow an audience. Now, as much as I hate that, that is the way of social media these days. But if you really want to get better at fantasy football, stop listening to the hot takes. Listen to all the information that is actually statistical based, historical based, not just some I had a feeling type thing about a player. Because I'll tell you this, I've played this game for 25 years now, and I will be the first one to admit that there is a lot of luck involved in winning in fantasy football. But there also is a little bit of skill. And if you can possess that skill, your chances of winning are going to be light years more than those that you're playing against. So if you're out there reading other articles or watching other channels and you see some hot takes, that should be an immediate red flag that is not where you want to get your information from. Number 3, falling for recency bias, and we've talked about this a lot here this offseason. And it doesn't matter how much I talk about it, it still happens every single year. We get comments 12 months of the year always saying, yeah, I'm never going to draft that guy again. He's trash. Or that dude helped me win it last year. I'm drafting him early this year. Now, as much as I know this is an emotional game, we can't get tied emotionally to these players. For example, take Tony Pollard last season. A lot of people overvalued Tony Pollard and he didn't deliver. Therefore, he busted for people, and now this year, they're dropping him way down the draft board. The player didn't bust. The people giving the analysis are what really busted. And more times than not, if you take those emotions into the next year, they will burn you. Now, sure, maybe you have a favorite player that you just like to root for on Sundays and you want him on your fantasy football team. That's fine. That's great. That's not really an issue that I'm talking about here. What I'm really saying is don't cross someone off your draft board in June or July. Every single player is draftable in fantasy football at a certain price. Sure, you may not want to reach for any of those guys early, but at some point they become draftable and they become a value. And the more value you can get on your fantasy football team, the better opportunity you have at what? Yes, winning. All right, number 4, how about tuning out in the offseason? I get it. I get worn out after the NFL season. At some point, I just get kind of tired of talking about football and I need to decompress a little bit. I'm sure you feel the same way after the season. But if you really want to get better at this game, you can't tune out from the time the Super Bowl ends up until preseason games start in August. There is a lot that happens in those 5 to 6 months that if you don't know about it, if you haven't been following it, you're setting yourself up to fail. That is the main reason why we continue to do at least 3 shows a week all year long. If any information comes out that we can gain a step on our opponents throughout the offseason, we want to know about it. We want to know about the coaching changes. We want to know the differences in the offense. We want to know the differences in personnel. You gotta remember, so many players change teams each and every year. Now, of course, everyone hears about the big name players, but are people paying attention to the offensive linemen that change teams, some of the defensive players that change teams, because they can have a huge impact on fantasy performance. So I get that you may want to decompress and take some time off, not watch as many videos in the offseason. I get it. But if you truly want to get better at this game, you cannot tune out for 6 months in the offseason. Number 5, relying on small sample sizes. And I see this all the time. So-and-so had a great week 18. He really proved what he could do in that game last year. He's taken over here this year. No, I'm sorry. That's not really how it works in this game. Just because you may like a player doesn't mean they're going to win a job or get more touches. Just because they performed well in maybe one metric last year doesn't mean they're going to get the job or get more touches. So many times you'll see people cherry pick certain stats to make their player that they like look better. But sometimes you gotta go a little bit deeper. This running back averaged 5 yards per carry last year. He's gonna dominate this year. Well, he lost 2 of his starting offensive linemen now, so maybe not. Or maybe he only got that chance last season due to another injury on the team. That guy's healthy now. Now he's going to be splitting work. You can't just look at one corner of the picture. You have to look at the big picture. You have to find all the information so you can come up with the best guess, the best estimate of what that player is going to do so you can maximize your chances at winning and putting together a great overall fantasy lineup. Number 6, how about making decisions early in the offseason? And we kind of touched on this when we were talking about recency bias, but I see way too often down below in the comment section, people saying something about a certain player. This player is is trash, I'll never draft him. That mentality right there is a loser's mentality. Because if you really want to win in this game, you will understand that every single player on that draft board has a draft value. And let me give you a little example here. Let's just say you don't value a player like Alvin Kamara as the running back 15 overall, but you have an opportunity to get him as the 20th running back off the board in your fantasy football draft. That is a value. And if you pass on him, you're making a huge mistake. You can't see the future any better than I can. And if we're really going to be writing off players before the season even starts for really no apparent reason other than some personal bias against the player, there's so many players you're going to miss out on each and every year that can help build you a winning fantasy football team. Because this is something that isn't going to go away, ever. There are always going to be players that fall during your fantasy football draft later than they should. It's the smart team owner that grabs a few of those players at the discounted price that always ends up on top. So please, do not make decisions, firm decisions in April, May, June, July, maybe even August. See how your fantasy football draft goes. See what players fall to you. Try to grab a couple of those higher upside players that have fallen because other league owners don't want to take the chance. Because remember, we're not trying to build a team of all your favorite players. We're trying to build a team that takes you to a fantasy championship. Number 7, selling high. And mostly this is for dynasty leagues for sure, but this is a mentality I just don't get. We work so hard to try to find those high performing players that the mentality in dynasty is once I get a high performing player, I gotta get rid of him for something else so I can build for the future. That is the worst mentality for dynasty fantasy football. Why are we always gonna build for future championships? I wanna win a championship right damn now too. Selling a player that has proven production for future draft picks makes no sense. You have no idea what that future draft pick is gonna turn into. Keep your high-performing players. Keep your draft picks. If there's pieces you want to move them on draft day. Because at that time, you have a great understanding of what you're actually going to be getting in return. I can't grasp the reason as to why people are so quick to try to sell high on players. Does that mean that I want a team full of 35-year-old veterans? No, it doesn't. But I also don't want an abundance of 2025 second-round picks. Keep those high-performing players. If you have an abundance of high-performing players at a certain position, try to make those trades on draft day. So many people want to make draft day trades because it's fun and exciting, and more times than not, you can get a deal done just because someone wants to trade, even though it may not be in their favor. Number 8, how about mock drafting the same way all the time? A lot of people kind of get stuck in a rut when they're mock drafting. They're going to mock draft from the 4 spot and they're going to do it 100 times and they're going to draft the same team over and over and over and over and over and over again. Why? Why would you do that? Draft different players at different spots during your mock drafts. Why would you do that? Because then you really get a better overall picture of what your team could look like in different scenarios. Remember, especially in home leagues, but most times, people just aren't always going to draft the player that's at the top of the draft list. ADP is a great tool to have a somewhat understanding of where players are going to go, but it's not set in stone. In every single fantasy football draft, there are players taken way too early than they should be. That really screws up a lot of people's draft strategies and draft plans. But if you spend all offseason mock drafting not only different players, but from different spots, you're going to have a great understanding of who's kind of gonna fall where. If you miss out on one player, who may be there around later that you can take instead. Now, mock drafting is a lot of fun and there's a bunch of different sites that you can do it on. But challenge yourself a little bit. Do it from a different position each time. From the first spot, the second spot, the third, all the way through the... Have drafts for all the different spots. Even though you may know where you're drafting from, kind of get an idea of where players are going. So when you're actually on the clock in your draft, you have an idea of where your league mates may be looking as well. I always tell people, mock draft with a purpose. Sure, you may be doing it to waste some time, but you might as well make it beneficial for yourself as well. Number 9 is getting overly emotional. We've talked about emotions a lot in this show, but this one, somewhat in a different way, and more so, it's really crept up the past couple of years. People will go from 0 to I hate this damn game in a half a second. It just seems like there are a lot more players out there right now that are a little on edge. And really, they're easily triggered. We have to know that not every player on our team is going to score 15 plus fantasy points every single game. Sure, they may struggle at times. Sure, they may go the hell off sometimes. That's fantasy football. Now, while I think this is becoming a little bit more trendy these days, I feel like there are a lot of people out there that are becoming overly reliant on trying to win the money associated with their fantasy football league. You should never play this game if you're doing it for the reason of trying to make money in your league. You gotta remember, this game is supposed to be fun. The purpose of this game is for you to watch any game on TV and have some sort of vested interest in it. The reason this game has been around for so long is not because it's out there making a bunch of millionaires. It's out there giving a group of people something fun to do for 4 or 5 months out of the year. If you play this game and find yourself getting legit angry and pissed off and rude to other people, this isn't the game for you. Now, can you get disappointed at times or upset that you lost? For sure. But this should not be a reason for you to treat anyone else with disrespect. And if you find yourself being disrespectful over fantasy football, get the hell out. Number 10 then is overthinking it. Have you ever heard paralysis by overanalysis in this game? It happens all the time. Sometimes you just need to look at the facts, look at the statistics, look at the history, make an informed decision, and then just roll with it. Is it gonna work out all the time? No, it's not. But that's why you hear us say on this channel all the time, we're playing the percentages. We know we can't win 100% of the time. We know we're not gonna get 100% of players correct. But damn it, if we can get 60 to 70% correct, that is gonna be light years ahead of most other fantasy football players. Take the information at face value. Look at the 2024 outlook. Make a decision and stick with it. If it doesn't work out and the season has started and you have a few underperforming players, you deal with it then, whether that be through the waiver wire or through trades in your league or whatever. If it doesn't work out, that sucks, but we'll figure it out in the long run. But you know I'm a man of the people, so I have a bonus mistake to avoid right here as well, and it's drafting way too early. I know you're excited for fantasy football. I know you're looking forward to the season. But don't draft teams in July. Don't draft teams even early August. Try to wait as late as you possibly can. I really prefer the last week of August, the first week of September if possible. The last thing you want to do is have your draft too early and then have some players that get hurt during the preseason, and now all of a sudden, the team that you were excited to draft, the team that you were looking forward to playing with, may be missing one of its best players. I know a lot of people got some crazy schedules out there, and it's hard to get a lot of people at the same spot at the same time. But if you really want the best fantasy football experience, you don't want to draft a team too early. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where you're a part of a league that does need to draft early, let me give you this advice. At least add a couple spots to your bench. Give yourself an opportunity to have some other options already on your bench that you drafted in case you do lose somebody to injury in the preseason. But at least it gives you an opportunity to draft the team that you want and roll with them to start the season. So there you have it, 11 mistakes to avoid in fantasy football. If you avoid these 11 things, the championship trophies are just going to start rolling in. Now, if you enjoyed today's show, once again, please do me a favor by hitting the like button and subscribing if you haven't already. Because I promise, if you subscribe, I will continue to give you as much knowledge as humanly possible when it comes to fantasy football. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here for the day. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and then most importantly, do your part to make the world a better place.
Analytics, off the chain, all the channels, not the same. Jake and Kyle.